Welcome to my channel. I'm glad that you guys took time out your busy schedules today to hear what I got to talk about. Man, I got a treat for y'all today. So good to see y'all. Now, this is my first recording since the new year. So before I even get into the preliminaries, let me first start off by saying Happy New Year to you. I want to wish you and your families a blessed and happy 2023. So I wanted to get that out the way. You guys are my YouTube family, and I want to wish you a happy new year. Now, for those who may not know me, I am Curtis A. Merriweather Jr. In 2020, I was named a game changer by the White House Policy Advisor for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. But now I'm serving as your government contracting mentor. Now, before we jump into our topic today, on this channel, our goal is to help entrepreneurs overcome business challenges by providing consultation, education, and training support. Now, we're unlike other so-called gurus. I'm finishing up my PhD in management. So a lot of the things we're going to talk about on this channel are based on 26 plus years of business experience and doctoral studies. So we're going to be able to bring the theoretical and the practical. And I think that's one of the things, not the only thing, that's one of the things that makes our channel. All right. Before we jump into our topic, one of the things I want you guys to do is I want you guys to like, share, and subscribe to the video. I want you to like, I want you to share, and I want you to subscribe and leave me a comment. I love getting comments from you guys. All right, let's keep on moving. Today, before I even do that, on 8-Figure GovCon is our website. I get the question often, Curtis, how do I work with you? One of the easiest ways to work with me is going to 8figuregovcon.com. We have several courses, but the course that I recommend is the 8-Figure GovCon Mastery 5X Systems course. That's the course I recommend. It is an investment, but with that investment, you'll get an opportunity to get direct mentoring and or coaching support from me on a monthly basis. We'll do 2 Zooms a month. There's no additional cost. I will answer the questions. There won't be some other third party standing in to answer your questions. It will be me. I will be live. Those Zooms will be optional, and you'll have the opportunity to present anything that you learn in the content, any kind of business questions or challenges you're overcoming, and I'll work to give you a actionable, definitive, and practical answer so that you can move forward in your journey. Now that we're in the new year, I started off by wishing you guys a happy 2023. Anything that's on our website until January 31st, 2023. So if you're watching this recording right now, then of course you'll be able to take advantage of that. And your coupon code is GovCon 2023. This will give you 20% off of any course or strategy session that you book with me until the end of the month. Okay. So that's my gift to you. That's my gift for you guys tuning in week after week, month after month, to our videos and engaging as a great audience. You guys are great listeners. So GovCon stands for government contracting. That's kind of, the pseudonym that we use in the space. So GovCon 2023 will be your coupon code, and that code will expire at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on January 31st. Okay, so February 1st, you will not be able to use that coupon code anymore. It will die and it will no longer be usable. All right, now let's jump into our topic for today. Today, I want to talk about the 5 keys to success in government contracting. So I want to talk about today the 5 keys to success in government contracting. Now, the content that you're going to hear on this channel is probably going to be unlike anything else that you have heard, just simply because I've been in this space for a long time. So when I put together these topics, I listen to you guys. So please leave me comments. Tell me the things that you want to hear about. This channel is dedicated to you and your education. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation in the government contracting space. Always has been, always will be. But we want to be your trusted and authoritative source on all things government contracting, and in the broader business entrepreneurship domain as well. All right, let's jump into it. So, the very first thing, so we're talking about the 5 keys to success in government contracting in 2020. Now, the things that I'm going to talk about, before I jump in this, the things that I'm going to talk about can be used in just general business as a whole. So, a lot of the things I talk about, yes, most of the time they're specified to government contracting, but they're just good general business principles at large. So that it can be used even if you're in the commercial space. If you're doing international business, if you're doing federal government contracting, which many of you guys know that's my bias, but these principles can also be applied at the state, the local level as well, and of course in commercial industry. These are just good business principles to make sure you're being laser focused and strategic in your approach. All right, now let's go ahead and jump in. So the first one that we want to discuss is be strategic. I want you to implement what I'm calling the 3-3-3 strategy. Now, say, Kurt, what are you talking about with this 3-3-3 strategy? I want you to identify 3 departments. I want you to identify 3 agencies, and I want you to identify 3 offices. If you're new to this space, I do not want you chasing everything that shows up on contract opportunities under I'm about to call it Fed Biz Ops. I've been in the space too long. Under sam.gov, Fed Biz Ops is the old site. Used to be Federal Business Opportunities. They've now merged with sam.gov, and I've been in the space so long that I sometimes call out the old name of the program. But it is sam.gov under contract opportunities. And I want you to find 3 departments, 3 agencies, and 3 offices. And just an example, say, I'm going to just give you one example of how you would do this. Say that your first department of the 3 is Department of Health and Human Services. Okay. I want you to drill down to the agency level, because if you know anything about that particular department, there's a bunch of sub agencies. But because of what's happened in the world with the state of the pandemic, we're going to just talk about the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So that's one of the sub agencies under the Department of Health and Human Services. There's many others, of course, like Centers for Medicaid, Medicare Services. There's a lot of. That's just one example. So in our example, we're going to use the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Now, we happen to, as a firm, to do IT and cybersecurity services. That's one of the things that Health and Human Services, CDC, and that's one of the things they buy. So the office that buys IT support at the CDC is an office called ITMO. It is the Information Technology Management Office, ITMO. So this is how I want you to apply this approach. Now, this is going to require a little bit of homework, but it's going to require you to be very, very strategic. One of the mistakes, and I want you to see my face, one of the mistakes that new companies make is the way they target and identify opportunities. They go to sam.gov under contract opportunities. Anything that they see that looks remotely like them, they put in a bid. That is a horrible approach. And it's actually not sustainable, and it will wear you out. It's going to wear you out. You're not going to get the depth and breadth in the customer base that you're trying to support. You can't, because you're trying to support too many people. So avoid the temptation to, I call it throwing rice up against the wall or macaroni up against the wall to see what sticks. That is a horrible business strategy. And I'm gonna leave that alone, because I was gonna open up a can of worms that I don't even want to address, because it's gonna take me back down the middleman strategy road today, and I don't want to do that. So today we're gonna stay focused. So I want you to do the 3-3-3 strategy. I gave you one example. So I used the example of Department of Health and Human Services. That's the department. The agency is the Centers for Disease Control, and the office that buys what I sell is ITMO, the IT management office. Now, I just gave you one example of how to do this, but I want you to apply this principle to your own business. So find 3 departments, 3 agencies, and 3 offices. Now, the person, what we're trying to do here is we want to find the office that buys what we sell. But oftentimes we don't think about business at a granular level. So this strategy is going to help you get very granular and very focused in your approach. So you're not just a dog chasing its tail. You're being very strategic and directive. I'm training you guys to be no kidding business owners who understand their lane and they take market share. And you can't take market share if you're chasing everything. I don't care what your favorite guru or coach told you. That is a horrible strategy, and the large businesses do not do that. We want to model success. Success leaves clues. So I want you to start, regardless of your size. Just because you're small doesn't mean you have to behave in a small fashion. We operate at excellence no matter what level we're on. So this is an excellent principle that I want you to begin embracing and adopting today. All right. Number 2, I want you to begin conducting market research. Now, I use these buzzwords on my site all the time because these are the words you're going to hear in the industry. These words may be new to you, but when you walk in a boardroom, or you find yourself sitting across the table from a buyer or a teaming partner, I want you speaking I want you using the parlance. I want you using the words that we use in this space. So I want you to get comfortable speaking in this way. And we try to go slow on this channel so that we don't lose anyone. That's not our intention, but to educate you so that when they hear you talk, it's like, okay, they've been around the space for a while. That person sounds like I do. And it builds rapport and trust quicker. All right. So we want you to do market research. Now, this is just a big fancy way of saying we want you to understand the competitive landscape that you're playing in. This is why we don't chase everything. We want to know our customers, and we want to know our customers well. Now, one of the ways we do this, and this is real easy and basic. When you identify that 3-3-3 strategy we talked about, and you find out the department, the sub-agency, and the office, you want to understand the history and mission of the organization. You'll typically see this on the About Us page at the sub-agency level. So, for example, when I talked about ITMO in our previous slide, the IT management office, you want to start at looking at the Centers for Disease Control. Now, again, I want you to right size this for you and what your goals for your organization. I'm just giving an example so you can put your arms around and actually adapt this strategy for your own intents and purposes. But you want to start with the About Us page. You want to know everything you can about the organization you're going to do business with. I want you to focus on what is the mission? What's the vision of the organization? What is the organizational hierarchy? What does the org chart look like? Understand who the executive, department, and branch leadership may be. Some organizations have a phone directory if you know where to look. But again, once you spend time in these organizations, you'll start learning the shortcuts. But you can't do this if you're chasing everything. And that is a strategy I want you to reject. It's a very popular strategy because it appears to give you quick wins, but those wins are not sustainable because you can't chase everything. And then how much is the organization spending in what you're selling? So if they're only buying a small amount of what you're selling, that may not be a great organization for you. So what we're doing here is figuring out what's the mission and vision of the organization, who are the decision makers here, and do they buy what we sell? That's what we're trying to do in the market research process. We want to make sure that our product and service offerings align with the form, fit, and function of the organizations that we're trying to sell to. Because what you may discover before you spend a whole bunch of marketing dollars and effort, you may find that the return, the residual from what you could potentially make from this agency is not worth the investment. There may be better rainbows to chase elsewhere. So we want you to learn where you should be spending your time. And that's one of the ways that we do that is here, but we have to do a top-down approach. So that's all I'm going to say for this one, because I could spend a whole day talking about any one of these slides. Now, let's go to our third one. This is super important, but it's only important when you've done the first 2 steps. First two steps was our 3-3-3 strategy, 3 departments, 3 agencies, 3 offices. Then we do a deep dive on the organizations we're interested in. Now, when we do a deep dive, we understand who's in charge, who's the executive, departmental, and branch leadership. We understand the org chart. We understand the buying patterns and behaviors of that organization. Most of your organizations are on a fiscal year, FY, September, October 1st through September 30th is typically the budgetary year of the federal government, typically. However, there are some agencies that operate on a different calendar, and especially my state organizations. State organizations typically operate from July to June. So, but again, these tools and techniques can be applied to any organization, but we are specifying them here for federal customers specifically. But you may have to adopt and adapt some minor changes based on who your target customer may be. But we're in FY 2023. FY 2023 started in October 1st of last year. The federal government operates on a fiscal year. Now we are in calendar year 2023, which started a few days ago as of this recording. So understand that most of your federal agencies or government agencies, period, most of them do not operate on a calendar year. They operate on a fiscal year. Now, why is that important? Because now it's the time of the year, around about the first, second quarter of every fiscal year. We're in the second quarter of FY 2023, first quarter of calendar year 2023. I know it's a little confusing, but you'll get used to it over time. Now, the federal government, by law, they require the agencies to publish a procurement forecast. We're in the second quarter of fiscal year 2023. Again, first quarter of calendar year 2023, but second quarter of fiscal year 2023. It started last year. Those agencies have by the second quarter, they've already produced the FY 2023 procurement forecast. So once you've identified the departments, the sub-agencies, and the offices, I want you to go to the agency level, and I want you to pull the procurement forecast for this fiscal year. These come out every year around this time. Some agencies come out sooner, some come out late, but at this point, most of those procurement or contracting forecasts for the year have already been published. I want you to go and I want you to download it from the contracting and procurement forecast for your target agencies that you identified in step 1. Now, what are you going to see? And this is, again, some of this is going to also help you with step 2, which is the marketing research piece. Now, what are you going to see when you pull this up? Well, you're going to see, number one, when you pull this forecast, you're going to see the name of the contracts that the government is intending to procure in this fiscal year. You're going to see an office or symbol name. Remember, I talked about the office. You're going to see the office and symbol name. Let me say this: all procurement forecasts are not structured the same way. But I pulled a procurement forecast from the Department of State a few days ago, and they use an office or symbol name. So if you don't see this in your procurement forecast, don't be alarmed. Each agency structures theirs slightly different, but you'll see some type of permutation of what I'm describing here. Also, the requirement: is it a new or is it a recompete? If it's new, this means the playing field is wide open. This is a new opportunity. This is a new requirement. So contracts are derived from a requirement or a need. That's a big fancy way of saying a need in the federal government. So a need occurs, or need occurs. They generate a requirements list, and out of that requirements list comes potential contracting opportunities. That's kind of how that's the synopsized version of how this works, without getting into defense acquisition, planning and budgeting and all that good stuff. Now, you want to see if it's a recompete. You want to see, is there an incumbent? The incumbent is language for, this is the person who has the contract today. So if you're looking at teaming, you want to, either as a sub or as a prime, it is important to know who the incumbent is. That's an important factor. It's often more difficult to pull work away from a prime that's performing. Now, prime that's not performing is a little bit of a relatively easier challenge, especially if the government or the customer is not satisfied. But you want to know who the incumbent is. This is going to help you kind of better understand the competitive landscape if you're pursuing this opportunity. You want to see if it's restricted or unrestricted. Unrestricted means full and open. Unrestricted means anyone can pursue this work. Anybody, literally anybody. Don't mean you're gonna win, but anybody can pursue this opportunity. Or is it restricted? Restricted lets you know it's a set aside. Now, small business by itself is a set aside. Everyone wants to talk about the 8A, the woman-owned small business, the hub zone, the SDVOSB, and yes, those are set asides. But I need you to know that anything not full and open is a set aside. Small business is a set aside. Total small business is a set aside. Just as much as 8A, woman-owned small business, hub zone, SDVOSB, those are all set asides too, but so is small business. Okay. You want to see, you can also see on this contract forecast, estimated contract value. This is what the contract is potentially going to be worth. And then you're going to see point of contact. Here you may see a program manager name, you may see a contracting officer name, or you may see a small business agency, small business official's name. Again, these agencies do these a variety of ways. Each agency kind of has their preferences and how they do this. But you'll see one of those names, and you'll see a name typically, and you'll typically see a phone number and an email address. This is how you engage with the federal government, which takes us right into our next point, which is engage early. Engage early. Now, for those who may or may not be aware of how the procurement or the funding process works in the federal government, right now we're in something called continuing resolution, and the federal budget has not been has the funding from the federal budget has not been released yet. That money is typically released in the second quarter of the fiscal year. So somewhere between January, typically it's not January, by the way, but somewhere between January and March, that money will start flowing down to the agencies, which will fund the things that's in our previous step that are on our procurement checklist. They are funded with the new budget has been signed, the NDAA, all that good stuff is done. And now the federal government has to release the money to the agencies to fulfill their mission objectives. And I'll leave that alone because that again, that can get super detailed. We want to keep this video timely. But I want you to engage earlier. But I want you to understand before you even engage, how are you planning to position? Are you planning to position yourself as a prime or sub? And the reason why this matters is because your strategy for positioning is going to be different if you're a prime or a sub. The moves you're going to make in the background are going to look differently based on what your overall objective is. Okay. And I'll leave that there. Is there a draft RFP if it's a recompete? Will you be given a draft RFP? Is there an old RFP archive that you can find to kind of get an idea of what the government is thinking? This is the time to start doing your FOIA request, also known as a Freedom of Information Act request. This is where you can get non-proprietary data directly from the federal government regarding opportunities that you want to chase. And you want to engage relevant points of contact. A lot of this information is derived from step 3 in our procurement forecast or contracts forecast. Either one of those words may show up, but this is, you want to engage early. So who do you want to engage with? You want to engage with someone in contracts. This may be a contracting officer or a contract specialist. This is if you're talking about priming. It's going to look a little different if you're talking about subbing. If you're talking about, you're going to need to talk to somebody from the technical side of the house. This could be a program manager, a project manager, and I'm going to even add another one here. This could be a COTAR. This is a contracting officer technical representative. This is a person that's not talked about a lot, but they normally serve as a liaison between the technical side, program side, and the contracts office. And typically they're technical and they know their job very well, and they know enough about contracting to help the process move along, to stop any bottlenecks that may occur in the acquisition process. That's all the way from the requirement identification to the solicitation hitting the street. So the COTAR is involved in that process, and even the what they call the TEB, the technical evaluation boards. When your proposal goes in, there's a board of people who get together to review that proposal for compliance and competitiveness and everything that goes in section L&M of your proposal. But I digress. And then you also want to engage with your small business representative. Now, this is not the small business administration, not to confuse the two. This is the agency small business rep. Used to back in, they used to call it the OSDBU, the Office of Disadvantaged Small Business Utilization Office is what it used to be called. Now they call them the Small Business Office. Now, again, not to confuse this with the SBA. Totally, the SBA is a standalone agency by itself. But we're talking about the agency's small business office. So go back to our initial example. We talked about the Centers for Disease Control. There is a small business representative there, rep at CDC, to help you navigate the terrain. It used to be, and I think it still is, a young lady named Gwendolyn Miles. I'm not telling you anything that's not publicly record. You go look, you'll find her name. Gwendolyn Miles is a small business rep at the CDC. No matter which agency you're wanting to do business with, there's a small business rep there. And this is great if you have no connections within that agency. So the small business rep will help you navigate the terrain. Now, let me go ahead and say this. And please, small business representatives, don't get mad at me, but it is true. All small business representatives are not created equally. Some are amazing. Some are not so amazing. But there's still someone that you need to engage with to help you understand the terrain. Most of the time, they'll give you some basic information about the organization, how to navigate the organization. They'll normally point you to the procurement forecast if you're having problems. They're a good first contact when you're trying to get your feet wet in the organization. If you know no one. Now, if you got relationships in the organization, then you go a different direction and you harness those relationships. But if you have no connections whatsoever, you have no customer intimacy, they have no idea who you are, then you would engage the small business office at that agency. And they will help you sometimes help you find the office who buys what you sell. So back in my previous couple steps ago, we talked about the market research and understanding my 333 strategy of department, agency, office. The small business rep may be able to help you identify the office that buys what you sell. That's just an extra tip. Okay. We're going to do all of this, steps 1, 2, 3, and 4 to come to 5. All of the things we've done previously help us put together a capture plan. A capture plan is just a big fancy way of saying, how are we planning to win work? The larger organizations have a capture manager whose whole job is to help them win work and guide the entire sales process from end to end, from the identification of an opportunity all the way to incumbent capture and the kickoff meeting before business development and proposals, and the contracts team or proposal team hands the effort off to the program manager to manage that engagement. So when the capture management says, okay, it's getting ready to hand the program off to the transition team and the program manager, that's the role of the capture manager, to win the work. Okay. And make sure there's a successful transition in the event a transition is needed. Now, how do you win work? It's basically two primary approaches. You're going to win based on price, or you're going to win based on being differentiated in some way. And then third is some hybrid approach. So price, number one, differentiator, number two, and a hybrid approach will be number three, where there's some combination of price and differentiator. Now, with the hybrid approach, I want you to be careful with that. I want to make sure you have strong value when you start kind of playing with this formula. Now, if you want to know more about this, jump in my government contracting class, and we go in this in great detail. Now, positioning your firm in the market. This is how are you letting the customer know who you are and what your firm represents. This could be advertising at government events. Sometimes they will be selling sponsorship. Maybe you're trying to sub on some similar size work, similar size and scope and complexity. Maybe you won a award as a prime with some work, maybe not in this agency, but at an adjacent agency. But we're talking here about how are you positioning your firm in the market to give the customer some level of comfort, especially when you get into larger acquisitions, that you can actually not only put together a good proposal, but you can actually execute and win this work. Contracts are won or lost. A lot of people can put together a good proposal, but can you execute? Can you manage the contract? That's where the profit margin is won or lost in the management. Everyone wants to spend a lot of time talking about proposals, and I get it, because that's equivalent to you getting them to the back to swing and hope to get on base. I get it. However, more emphasis needs to be placed on the management, which is why I recommend subbing coming out the gate. Now, I have students that prime, I have students that sub. I recommend new companies to sub. There's a lot of moving pieces in this game if you're brand new. You're still trying to understand the different contract types and understanding the risk profile and the risk matrix and all this, how to put in a proper invoice. Is your accounting system up to speed? There's a whole lot of things, and maybe that's an idea for another video. What are the things that new companies need to have in place from a process and systems perspective to win in this space? It's not just you putting in a proposal, crossing your fingers and hoping that you win. Because if you do win, can you actually maintain, keep the customer satisfied with your performance? But that's a whole nother conversation that we're just not going to address today. But if you're a prime or sub, you need to have a solid bid, no bid strategy. Now, if you don't know what bid, no bid is, I did a video. Go back, look at some previous videos. I did a whole video on bid, no bid. Now, this is not a sexy topic, but it's absolutely necessary, even if you're a small business, to develop a bid, no bid strategy. What are the things you need to be looking at as a small business to determine, do you have a snowball shot in Hades of winning this work? Just because an opportunity shows up doesn't mean you need to bid it. Just because an opportunity shows up does not mean you need to bid it. That's a whole word by itself. Now, if you're a sub, you need to be thinking about incumbent relationship development. We talked about on the procurement forecast or contracting forecast, you'll see the words interchangeably. We talked about they will identify the incumbent. If you're pursuing subcontracting opportunities, this is a good way to identify potential immediate opportunities. And that's all I'm gonna say about that, because we can spend a whole video on just this. I got content for days. I've been doing this a long time. All right, then the management and retention of those relationships. So it's not just about getting into a teaming relationship, but can you manage and retain the relationship? And that goes back to how well do you manage contracts? This is typically the primary role of the program manager. So even if you're a sub, you need to have someone that's managing the contract, whether that's the CEO, and that's typically new companies, you start off serving as the program or project manager. And that role typically is not compensated at the sub level. That's a role that's compensated at the prime level, but you still have a fiduciary responsibility as a subcontractor to manage your work, even when you're in direct support to a prime. And primes, you definitely need to be managing your work. And invoicing does not invoicing does not equate to 51% of the work. I've heard this recently. 51% of the work, you can claim you did 51% of the work just by invoice. And that is not what program or project management is. It is managing the scope, the schedule, the quality, and the performance of that contract. Invoicing is just a small piece, and I do mean a small piece of the equation. But you'll be surprised of the things that I hear these gurus talk about when they're teaching their students and how to win work. But I digress. Again, as you guys know, I don't call names, but the things that I see out here sometimes, just quite frankly, just sadden me. All right, moving on. Last but not least, I need you to execute the plan. All the previous steps were culminating to this point where you are developing and implementing a plan. You're executing against that plan that you developed. And I want you to monitor, control, and refine the plan. What does that mean? Well, it means you have an actual plan, what's in place, and what you had forecasted, which is what you were expecting. And if they don't match, you make the refinements. So when you need to modify the plan because it's not working the way you thought it was going to work, you need to account for that and make the necessary provisions so that you can hit your target. Management is you being able to refine your approach to still obtain your desired outcome, even in the state of what may look like chaos. That's your job. When your company start growing, you got a bunch of employees, you got a bunch of contracts and task orders, and you got these competing obligations. Your job as a manager is to be able to manage that. Now I'm gonna give you a quick mnemonic before I get out of here. The job of the manager is to organize, to delegate, to follow up, and support. You say, Kurt, what do you mean by organize? That means make sure your team has everything that they need. Organize it. Make sure they have what they need to do their job effectively, whatever that may be. Make sure the resources are there for them to do their job. Delegate. That means put the right people in the right places. Follow up. Don't forget about them. Go back and make sure they're progressing on task. And maybe some new needs have occurred that they didn't anticipate. But you need to make yourself known and present so they can communicate that to you so you can help solve their problem. The job of a business from the top down is to be a global problem solver. The CEO's job is to solve the problem of the employees. The employee's job is to be empowered by the CEO and the executive staff to solve the problem of the customer, whether that's a federal agency, or whether that's a prime contractor. And then support. Support may look like training. Support may look like mentoring and coaching. Support may be giving them time off when you see they're burned out, but support your staff. Well, that's all I want to talk about today, guys. Those are my, and I apologize in the corner so long, but those are the things I wanted to discuss today. And they're super, super important and super, super critical. And I need to make sure that you do these things. The things that I'm telling you is based on years and years of experience, and I want you guys to learn from my successes as well as my failures. You may make some new mistakes, and that's okay, but don't repeat mine. So we put this information out here for your growth and your development because I want you to build and cultivate thriving organizations. I want you to be job creators in your community. And I want you to be helping your employees send their kids to colleges and buying cars and just moving through life. One of our most fulfilling roles as executive leaders is to empower our workforce. I love it when individuals come into our organization one way, and after a period of time, they have completely transformed who they are as a being for the better. That is where I get fulfillment. And that's what makes sometimes the things that come along with being an executive leader, that's what makes it most rewarding, is when I see the people under my leadership that are benefited. But that's all I want to talk about today. I hope this conversation was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Now, if you have not watched my other videos, go back and watch my other videos and subscribe, share, comment, and like, and keep the comments coming. I love reading your comments, even the ones that are a little critical. It's all good. Y'all stimulate the algorithm, and I appreciate you. Until next time, and have a great day. I'm going to see you at the top.